Hello everyone. This is topic 9 of the human anatomy lectures. We are continuing with the nervous system. We learned about the human brain in the previous lectures and now we are going to learn about the spinal cord. The medulla oblongata, which is the inferior most part of the brain stem, it passes through an opening in the occipital bone. That opening is called foramen magnum, and then it continues inferiorly as the spinal cord. It's about 45 centimeters in length, 1 centimeter in diameter, and it goes all the way from foramen magnum to lumbar vertebra number 2. The spinal cord has the job of connecting the brain with the PNS. There are two nerve roots that emerge on each side of the spinal cord, and these nerve roots would join to form 31 pairs of spinal nerves. This figure shows the posterior view of the spinal cord. As you can see, there is a ventral and a dorsal root on each side. That means on the left as well as on the right side, you will see the two roots, and these roots would join to form the spinal nerve. The spinal cord resides inside the vertebral column. It passes through the opening in each vertebra, which is known as the vertebral foramen. The last part or the inferior part of the spinal cord is tapering, and it is at the level of L1 or L2. This is known as the conus medullaris. After the conus medullaris, there is a horse tail like collection of nerves that goes out, which is known as the cauda equina, and this fills the remaining part of the vertebral column all the way up to the sacrum. The spinal cord has the responsibility of regulating many reflex reactions. This figure shows a human vertebra on the left side with the vertebral foramen shown. There is no spinal cord there. And the figure on the right side shows the spinal cord inside the vertebral foramen of the vertebra. The spinal cord is organized into 31 segments, and from each segment there is a pair of nerves that come out. So there are a total of 31 pairs of nerves. These nerves are divided into based on the region in which they are present. So there are 8 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 coccygeal nerve. The spinal cord also shows 2 enlargements or swellings. The first one is the cervical enlargement and the second one is lumbar enlargement. Just like the meninges or membranes in the brain, the spinal cord also has spinal meninges, which are membranes, and the function of the meninges is to provide protection, stability, and to absorb shock. The spinal meninges are continuous with the cranial or the cerebral meninges. They have 3 layers: the dura mater, which is outermost, arachnoid mater, which is middle layer, and pia mater, which is innermost. This figure shows the 3 meninges around the spinal cord. There are certain differences between cranial and spinal meninges. The first difference is that the dura mater in the spinal cord has a single layer, while that in the brain, that means the cranial dura mater, has 2 layers. And this single layer in the spinal cord, it does not attach to the vertebral column. That means there is a space that exists between the spinal dura mater and the interior vertebral foramen. This space is known as epidural space, and it is filled with fat. There is no such epidural space in brain because the outer layer is fused to the skull. The next difference is that the pia mater in the spinal cord has tiny extensions which are called denticulate ligaments, and these ligaments help the pia mater to attach to the overlying arachnoid and dura mater. Another difference is that the pia mater in the spinal cord, it extends after the spinal cord ends, and this extension is known as filum terminale. It is a fibrous extension and it attaches to the coccyx. Look at the epidural space between the dura mater and the vertebral foramen. Spinal cord anatomy. If you look at the transverse section of a spinal cord under the microscope, you will see a butterfly-like structure which is made up of gray matter. And surrounding this gray matter is the white matter. There is also a tiny opening called the central canal right at the center, and this central canal is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid. Now the lining of the canal has ependymal cells, which are ciliated cells and that help in the circulation of CSF. The 2 wings of the butterfly, they are connected by connections. These are posterior and anterior gray commissures. So these are 2 connections. The external surface of the spinal cord has two indentations, and those are the anterior median fissure, which is wide, and the posterior median sulcus, which is narrow. This is the sectional organization of the spinal cord. You can see the butterfly-shaped gray matter with the central canal in the center and the white matter surrounding the gray matter. The gray matter is organized into horns. There are posterior or dorsal horns, lateral horns, and anterior or ventral horns. The posterior horns are tapered out, they extend, while the anterior horns are blunt. The gray matter in the spinal cord is internal. It is mostly made up of the cell bodies or the soma. It is divided into regions or horns as we just described in the previous slide. The white matter is exterior. It is mainly made up of myelinated axon tracts. The white matter is also divided into regions which are known as columns or funiculi. There is a posterior dorsal region or funiculus, a lateral funiculus, and an anterior or ventral funiculus. Spinal nerves exit at the level of each vertebra. At the origin of the spinal nerves, there is a dorsal root and a ventral root. The dorsal root is associated with the dorsal root ganglia, while the ventral root contains axons. Yeah, this figure shows the central canal, the gray matter surrounding it, and the white matter in the periphery. Also look at the dorsal root and the ventral root of the spinal nerve. At each side of the spinal cord, these two roots unite to form the spinal nerve. The gray matter is divided into the posterior horn, the lateral horn, and the anterior or ventral horn. This slide shows the organization of nuclei in the gray matter. The transverse section of a spinal cord shows that the posterior gray horns are made up of somatic, sensory, and visceral nuclei. The lateral gray horns, which are present in the thoracic and lumbar regions, these contain visceral motor nuclei. The anterior gray horns contain somatic motor nuclei, and the gray commissure consists of axons which are crossing from one side to another. So this figure shows that the posterior gray horn is mainly made up of sensory nuclei, while the anterior gray horn is made up of motor nuclei. The white matter, which is mainly made up of myelinated axons, consists of columns of nerves called the funiculi. There is a posterior white funiculus, an anterior white funiculus, and a lateral white funiculus. These columns or funiculi, they are either made up of sensory tracts or motor tracts. This figure shows the posterior, lateral, and anterior white columns or funiculi. Now we are going to learn about the peripheral nervous system, PNS. Two important terms in PNS is nerve and ganglion. So a nerve is a bundle of axon fibers in the PNS. In the CNS, it is called tract. These nerves are covered or protected by connective tissue coverings. There are three layers of coverings that nerves have. Each neuron or each axon of a neuron, that's each fiber, is covered by the endoneurium. Then the groups of axons, they are bound into bundles or fascicles, and they are covered by the perineurium. Several fascicles are bound together by another covering called epineurium. This figure shows endo, peri, and epineurium. Another figure illustrating the connective tissue layers. Nerves can be classified into three categories. The first one is sensory or the afferent nerves. These nerves carry impulses or signals towards the CNS. The second category is motor or efferent nerves. These nerves carry impulses opposite to or away from the CNS. The third category is mixed nerves, which carry both sensory and motor fibers.